So it looks like this trend of comic book villains getting their own standalone movies continues. We're getting a Morbius movie. Last year we had the incredible Joker. Before that we had Venom, which I thought that movie was okay at best. The scenes with Venom and Eddie Brock talking to each other and Venom doing cool things were awesome to see. Very well done, but overall I kind of didn't really care about anything else happening in the movie. It felt very generic, but it made a ton of money. Rest assured that's why we're getting a Morbius movie. If you don't know a whole lot about the Morbius character, don't feel bad because he's really not well known amongst the general public. I actually did make a whole lore video on him, so if you'd like to know more on the character, you can click right up there in the corner. It's also not really accurate to call Morbius a villain because he's kind of like Venom. He started off as a Spider-Man villain and then eventually became an anti-hero, sometimes a straight-up superhero, so he's not really a bad guy per se. And judging by the trailer for Morbius, it looks like we're going to get a little bit of both sides of that character. Just to generalize the character, there's a lot more details than this, but he's basically a vampire. And I say basically because he's more vampire-ish. He's not like a supernatural vampire that burns at the sight of crosses. He was the result of a science experiment gone wrong, like a million other comic book characters. He's got vampire-like qualities, and he needs to constantly feed on blood to survive. But on this video, I want to focus on the trailer, and we're going to break it down a little bit and talk about what we can expect from the movie based on the footage that we have. So we've got Jared Leto in the role of Dr. Michael Morbius, and we get glimpses of how his blood disease affects his daily life as he's desperately searching for a cure. And since bats are associated with blood, like vampire bats, he does some experiments with them, cures himself, but he ends up with powers like super strength and speed, echolocation, among a bunch of others, and he's got this incredible thirst for blood.
Until the remedy is worse than the disease.
I like that we see his classic look here with the white monster face. I hope we see a lot of that though. In the comics, he pretty much looks like that all the time. I feel though like the movie's gonna do that whole thing where he just turns that way when he loses control, and the rest of the time we're just gonna see regular Jared Leto face. I hope not, but I think that's what's gonna end up happening here. It looks like it's gonna have plenty of horror-based elements in there, since he's basically a monster. There's also two major characters that appear here. Adria Jorna, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, she plays Martine Bancroft. In the comics, that's a character that had a close relationship with Morbius, his ex-fiancée. She's died a couple times. She's come back as a vampire. So it'll be interesting to see if this movie is going to lead up to something like that in the future. And Matt Smith is going to be playing the main villain of the story. Loxias Crown looks like a regular guy in the movie, at least from this trailer, but in the comics, he's very far from being a regular guy. He becomes the villain known as Hunger. He experimented directly with Morbius and turned himself into a living vampire. Overall, the trailer does a pretty good job explaining who Michael Morbius is and kind of sets up that universe around him. At its core, the trailer itself is really just a bunch of action shots with him running around and using his superpowers, which I didn't really expect much more because Venom was kind of like that. It also explains how Jared Leto still looks so young. The guy is what, I think like 48 years old now? He doesn't age. The guy looks like he just turned 30. He's a vampire. For real. The trailer did make me really excited about this movie though, because I've always liked this character since I was a kid. I've always liked those monster characters that Marvel's adapted into their comic books. It's almost like a cross between Venom and Dracula Untold. If you like vampire movies and you haven't seen Dracula Untold, that's a must-watch. It's really good. As far as Jared Leto in the role, I think he's going to do a great job. I didn't like him as the Joker at all. Jared Leto is a good actor. My problem with the Joker in Suicide Squad wasn't Jared Leto, it's the way the character was actually written. I hate that version of the character. I think Morbius is a good role for him, and he looks just like the guy too. I don't know how well the movie's going to do either, because I know Venom made a ton of money, yes, but here's the thing, Venom already had a huge established fan base on his own as a character. Morbius doesn't have that pre-installed fan base, so they're really going to have to make a good movie to draw in the crowds. And then you have this whole thing about not having Spider-Man in the actual movie. That's still so weird to me, because as a comic book fan, when I saw Venom, not having Spider-Man in it was just such a huge gap. It felt like there was this crucial missing piece to the story. So I wonder if I'm going to feel the same way with Morbius. But we might see Spider-Man in the future because this movie, lo and behold, looks like it's set in the MCU somehow. If you need any proof of that, it's right at the end of the trailer. The freaking Vulture pops up from Spider-Man Homecoming.
Michael Morbius. Got tired of doing the whole good guy thing, huh?
What's up, Doc?
Michael Keaton, he's right there. What is he doing here? And another thing, look at this shot right here. You see Morbius walking by this image of Spider-Man on the wall, and it says murderer, which of course ties into the end of what happened in Spider-Man Far From Home. But what really confuses me, and I assume that Sony has some kind of stipulation in their contract with Marvel Studios that they can't show the Tom Holland version of Spider-Man in their movies, because that is most definitely the Tobey Maguire suit. But those are my initial thoughts on Morbius. Comes out this summer, July 31st, 2020. I will be watching it day one and probably reviewing it. But I would like to hear your thoughts down below. What did you guys think of the trailer? What's your first initial impressions? And is this a character you know fairly well? I'm really curious about that because half of the people I talk to have no idea who it is, and the other half have just kind of heard of him. Watch my Morbius lore video. I'll catch you guys later. Since you made it to the end of this video, I assume you enjoyed it, so why don't you go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss any new content. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, links in the description below, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can join my Patreon or become a channel member. This is Fabian, I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.